Financially raw, real, authentic wisdom with Lawrence Oberholzer from Retire Rich and Happy.
Okay, so let's get into the topic for today, the hierarchy of financial abundance. Now, when we start building this pyramid, for lack of a better term, you have to start with your foundation. The foundation of any building is what creates the strength of that building. If you start building a house and you don't have a solid foundation, your house is going to start cracking, the walls are going to start crumbling, and your house wouldn't withstand the elements. And this is the same with your financial building that you are building. You need to create a solid foundation. Now, that foundation is what we call your financial intelligence. Guys, if you want to succeed at anything, you first have to get the education and understand. You can't wait for other people to do it on your behalf. One of the things we teach is that you need to move from being a passive investor to an active investor. And that's the same with anything in your life. You need to stop being passively involved in your own financial future and go over to becoming actively involved. That doesn't mean you do not get advice. That doesn't mean you do not get help to implement certain things. But you need to be in charge so that you can do these things on your terms and not on the financial advisor, the insurance company, the investment house, on their terms. And the only way to do that is by being educated. Remember, we come from an education system that for generations have taught us how to become good employees and earn an income. But it doesn't teach us what to do with that income once we've earned it. So we get to 40, we're battered, we're bruised, our expenses are higher than our incomes, we've got debt, we've got credit cards, we've got personal loans, and then people look at us and say, but you've made some stupid decisions, haven't you? But it's not that you made the stupid decisions, that you didn't know any better. So if you want to succeed, you first have to invest in your financial intelligence. Now, according to me, there's two sides to this foundation of financial intelligence. The first side to this foundation is the theoretical knowledge. You need to educate yourself on the rules of the game of money. You need to understand what needs to be done and how these things work so that you can start using that to your benefit instead of the financial institution's benefit. So that's the first thing, the theoretical knowledge. Now, guys, you can get a lot of this knowledge for free. We're living in the information age. There is no excuse for saying I don't know or I can't do this. You can go in the blink of an eye, with a click of a button. You can see and learn how to do anything you can think of. But we don't use that enough. Go and do research, read some websites, read some blogs, go watch some YouTube videos. We've even made it easier. You just go to our YouTube channel, I Retire, and on I Retire is all of the shows that we've done in the past, all of these things that I discuss that teaches the rules of the game of money. So go and invest your time. Instead of sitting and watching Netflix, sit and rather watch something that teaches you, that gives you information, that helps you to build financial independence in the future. Once you get to the tip of the pyramid, if you then want to go watch Netflix and binge watch one or other series, you can, because you have created your financial abundance pyramid. So financial intelligence is very important. That's the theoretical side. But there's also a practical side, the implementation of that knowledge. Because remember, knowledge alone is not power. The implementation of knowledge is power. So it's no use understanding the rules, getting to know it better if you do not implement. So this is why we have created a financial coaching model where you get a coach that helps you overcome what I call the knowing doing gap. Because it's one thing to know what you need to do. It's a completely different thing for actually doing it. And that's why you need a coach. That's why you need somebody that can take you by the hand and guide you through the implementation. Now, If you are interested in seeing how this coaching model of ours work, you are welcome to go to our website, retirehappy.co.za, and you can go and see and register for a webinar to see exactly how the coaching works and how it can help you to implement our 5-step system, our unique 5-step system, as well as building this hierarchy of financial abundance for you. So you have to focus on that first. And I know a lot of people say, but I can't afford to put money into this. I can barely feed my family. But Benjamin Franklin once says, if you empty the coins in your purse into your mind will fill your purse with coins. You have to invest in yourself. Guys, most of this information is completely free in any case. So the whole thing about saying that I can't afford to invest in my financial intelligence is actually just an excuse. It's just you giving yourself an excuse for the financial situation you are sitting in. Secondly, the excuse that you cannot afford to have a coach is also not valid, because through our experience, through working with hundreds of people, not once has a coach worked with a student where the student hasn't saved many times over the monthly cost of the coach. So not only does the coach basically cost the student nothing, because the money they've saved by working with the coach pays for the coach, they've been put in a much better situation. We've had one client that went from a minus 12,000 Rand cash flow to a positive 15,000 Rand cash flow by working with a coach. That is a 27,000 Rand a month turnaround. So do you think the money paid for the coach was worth it? Many times over. So you have to take the first step before you can get the benefit. You can't sit back and complain about something and not do something about it. Okay, so we have a comment here from Fricky. He says, morning Lawrence, well done Kelsey, I'm so proud of you. Yes, thank you, those tears are happy tears. The whole office is proud. Thanks Fricky. Yeah, we are all proud of Kelsey and the song, and we really wish her all the best with the performing of the song and the exposure she's going to get. Okay, so that is your foundation of your building, your financial intelligence. If that is not strong, your building won't be strong. And you can look at it in practice. How many people that earn big money, their foundation isn't strong. They haven't learned the rules of the game. Therefore, they don't have the stability. They don't have the security in their system. And if one thing goes wrong, they get retrenched. Something like COVID happens. Their whole financial building collapses all around them. And I think we all know people over the last 2 years whose building has collapsed around them because the foundation wasn't solid. So once that solid foundation is built, the cornerstone, the next level of your pyramid that you build is what we call your risk management level. So once you've laid the foundation of knowledge, you now have to make sure that if anything unforeseen happens, your life and your dependents' lives can continue in the same manner that they were used to. Not better, the same. And that is called the risk management level. Guys, we live in a world where there's risk all around us. We live in a country where there's massive risk all around us. People die on the roads, people die from crime, people get disabled as a result of car accidents. Everything around us is risky. We need to make sure that these things are covered if something had to happen to us. Remember, you might not have control over what happens to you. You can't control the fact that you drive out of your driveway and a taxi or a bus comes around the corner, hits your car, and you are paralyzed. That you have no control over. What you do have control over is firstly how you react to what just happened to you, and secondly how you prepared for something like that might happen to you. Something I say to people a lot is the risk management level is like having a parachute. You might never need that parachute, but if you don't have it the day that you actually need it, you're probably never going to need it again because it's going to be too late. So what falls under this risk management level? So the first thing is death. You need to make sure that if something happens to you and you pass away, your dependents would be able to survive financially in the same manner as they are used to. Guys, I see so many times where a person bought a house. There's insurance on the bond for the house. So if the person passes away, the house is paid. But they haven't made provision for income supplementing their spouse's income and for the spouse and the children in the event that they pass away. So now the house is paid off, but the family has no money to survive on a month-to-month basis. So what then happens in a couple of months? They have to sell the house to survive. So that cover that covered the bond didn't actually do anything, because all it created was a problem later on. So you need to make sure that you have a holistic view of your risk, not just focusing on specific areas. So that's death. Secondly, we have disability. What happens in the event that something happens to you and you cannot work and generate an income anymore? Now, a lot of people look at that and they always have it almost like tongue-in-cheek and say, well, if I'm disabled, I don't want to live, so I need to get a lead pill, a lot of people say. But I promise you, once you get into that situation, if you do have the unfortunate luck that something like this happens to you, I promise you, your mindset about it will change. And people say, yeah, but I just need to make sure that if my family is looked after if I pass away. And then they forget about disability. But disability is actually worse than death. Because on death, if you pass away, your family can still move on. Yes, they will grieve. Yes, they will miss you. Yes, it will be difficult for them. But eventually they will move on and their life will continue, as hard as it's going to be. But on disability, they cannot move on because you are still there. You need to be looked after. There needs to be money for food and clothing and medical aid and all of these things for you. If you suddenly lose your ability to generate an income, the financial problems that creates for the family, over and above the problems that the disability creates and the trauma that disability creates, is astronomical. So you need to make sure that you are covered for disability. The third part is severe illness. Those are the cancers and the strokes and the heart attacks and all of those kind of illnesses that might pop up. Now, a lot of people look at that and they say, but wait. I've got a medical aid. I've got a disability cover. Why would I need severe illness? Isn't it the same thing that gets insured over and over again? But how I explain it to people is severe illness fits the gap between all the other major areas. Now, what are the major areas? If you look at you as a person, the things that can go wrong with you is basically three main things. The first one is you could pass away. The second one is you could become disabled. And the third one is you could have a major medical expense, hospitalization, or medical conditions. Severe illness falls in the middle of those three main areas. So let's look at the most common severe illness, the most well-known, which is cancer. If you get cancer, you can pass away from it, but you're not necessarily going to pass away from it, so your life cover won't pay out. You can become disabled from it, but you're not necessarily going to be permanently disabled, therefore your disability won't pay out. Your medical aid will pay for some of the expenses regarding your cancer, but not necessarily everything. So what severe illness does is it covers the gap between those areas where those areas don't reach. So it is important to have cover for severe illnesses. The next level or the next block in your risk management level is your short-term insurance. Now, what is short-term insurance? That is your car insurance, your household insurance, the building insurance. So that's the next one. You need to insure the stuff that you've bought, the things that you own, because it has a financial impact. The funny thing, though, is that people typically spend more money on their short-term insurance than they spend on life cover, disability, and severe illness combined. people have no issue to pay 2,000 or 3,000 rand a month for short term. But if you look at 2,000 rand a month or 3,000 rand a month for risk cover, life cover, disability, dread disease, they look at it and say, but this is very expensive. And this is the complete wrong way to look at these things. Because I always tell the story about the goose that lays the golden eggs. If you had a goose that laid golden eggs every morning, and you could sell those eggs to look after your family, what would you insure? Would you insure the goose or would you insure the eggs? Now, any logical person would say, obviously I'll insure the goose. Because if the egg gets lost, tomorrow I'm getting another egg so I can still survive. I can maybe make it through the first day. But if I lose the goose, then everything is gone. So, but what do we do in practice? We insure the eggs, we insure the stuff that we own, but we don't insure the goose that created the stuff. So if you don't know it by now, you are the goose. You are the person. Everything you own, everything around you is what you created. You started with that in your mind and you actually created it in reality. So you need to insure the goose, but you need to insure your stuff as well. The next one is health insurance, which includes your medical aid, gap cover, all of those kind of things. Guys, again, we're living in South Africa. I don't think you want to, if you are seriously ill or you have a serious medical condition, you want to be dependent on going to a state or a government hospital. We all know what it looks like there. So make sure that you can get the best health service or help, medical help if something goes wrong. And then we have your estate planning and final expenses. So that's two parts of the same thing. Estate planning is to sit down and properly plan your estate so that the assets that you build up gets to the right people. Make sure that you limit the cost in your estate, like estate duty, transfer duties, all of these costs that needs to be paid in your estate. Because even if you pass away, you're still going to pay for things. That's unfortunately the reality of life. So the estate planning is looking at your estate and making sure that the assets go to the right people, the costs are calculated and planned properly. And then the last one is the final expenses. Make sure that you have enough money available to pay for the final expenses so that your estate can be wound up. So final expenses can include your funeral cover, obviously. It includes any cost that needs to be paid that you need to cover in your estate, like executors' fees, etc., etc. And it also includes some money for your beneficiaries or your dependents while this estate is wound up. Because remember, if you pass away tomorrow, your estate is frozen. So your income stops. So your family needs to survive for a couple of months until the estate is wound up. And that, to look after that period of time, you need something for final expenses. So guys, that is the foundation and the first cornerstone or the first level of bricks that you use to build this pyramid of yours. And those two areas, we create financial stability. So that is the first two levels. So let's talk about the next one, the savings level. So once you've done your risk management, you've done your financial intelligence, you then start getting into your savings level. Now, we've been taught that savings is the answer. The way you get to retirement is by saving enough money throughout your life so that you can live off your savings. So we're not saying that's wrong. We are just saying that that is incomplete. It is not the solution. It's just one of the stepping stones in the solution. So what do you work on when you start saving? The first thing you save in is debt settlement. Now, I know this sounds counterintuitive. How do you save into debt settlement? And how that works is by taking your positive cash flow and putting that towards getting rid of your unsecured debt. And guys, we specifically focus here on unsecured debt. What is unsecured debt? It is the debt that you don't have an asset underlying the debt. Your house is secured debt because the property stands for the asset, is for the security of the debt. So underlying that is the property, where your credit card has no underlying asset. Therefore, it is unsecured debt. That is your most expensive debt. So you want to get rid of that first. So you save into your unsecured debt. You save into getting rid of that debt because by putting that positive cash flow towards that, you are basically saving the interest that you were paying. So it's pointless to go save into a savings vehicle like a retirement annuity or an endowment where you're going to get 6 or 7% return while you are paying 22 or 25% interest on a personal loan or a credit card. Get rid of that first. So you save into debt settlement. Secondly, you start saving into your emergency fund. Guys, don't start saving into a retirement annuity until you've built a proper emergency fund. You need to create your own security. Now, this emergency fund doesn't have to be complicated. It can be a typical savings account that you just link to your banking profile. Also, you want to start looking at saving into creating a Capex fund. What is Capex? Capex stands for capital expenditure. That is where you sit and you make sure that you understand your annual budget as well as you understand your monthly budget. Because it's usually the things that happen once or twice a year that gets us into trouble from a debt perspective. Because we tie our budget so closely, or we so close to the edge with our budget, that the moment a once-off expense comes through, like a car that needs to be serviced, or tires that needs to be put on, or school clothes for the kids, or something like that, we don't have that to pay in our normal monthly budget. So what do? We put that on the credit card. We put that onto our revolving credit or take out a personal loan. And that is what gets us into trouble. So what you want to do is you want to calculate how much these once-off expenses are throughout your year. And then you want to create a Capex fund. Now we combine those together and we call that your reserve account, but you can have it as two separate funds if you want to as well. We just use our variable cost segregation or the bucket system to simplify the process. The fourth area that you want to save into is your children's education. You want to start putting money away to make provision for your child's education. Now, a lot of people look at that and they take out a study policy. We are not big proponents of a study policy because they add a lot of things on it that increases the cost of that policy. All we say is put money away so that there is capital available for your children's education. If they're not going to go and educate themselves or go for tertiary education, then you must at least have money available, capital, that they can start a business or they can buy their first car or something like that. So don't use a study policy, rather have an investment like a unit trust or an ETF and put money away there. And then the last thing you start saving into is your bond, your mortgage, to get rid of that bond. That is the biggest debt you probably will have during your life, is paying off your house. Now, we've got a video on the channel that talks about the 4 steps or the 4 strategies to pay off your bond in half the time. Go and watch that video, and in the link of the video of the YouTube video, there will be a link to this video as well. So just go and check that out and learn the 4 stages or the 4 strategies to pay off your bond in half the time. Okay, so that creates financial security. Your savings level creates financial security. So you go from financial stability, which is your financial education and your risk management level, and now you go to your savings level, which then creates financial security. Once you've built these 3 levels, you are secure in your finances because you have now become your own bank. If something goes wrong, if one of these once-off events happen, you don't have to go to a bank and take out a loan, put money on your credit card. You can cover those expenses yourself, which creates financial security for you. So the next step after you've done your savings level is to start building business assets. Now, this is very important. I truly believe that if you want to become wealthy, if you want to retire financially in 10 years, you need to create what we call MSI. MSI stands for multiple sources of income. Most of us only have PSI, one primary source of income, PSI. You want to create multiple sources of income, and the first way you start doing that is by becoming an entrepreneur and start creating some business assets. Now, here's the challenge that most people face. When you start improving your financial situation, you actually only have two ways to improve it, and it's very simple. You either reduce expenses or you increase your revenue, or you do a combination of the both. The problem most people have is that they focus too much on increasing revenue because they're thinking it's an income problem, where most often it starts as a financial management and expense problem. So what do people do? They see they can't come out on their income, so they start working harder. They start a part-time business. They work overtime. They go for the next promotion, getting more money in, only seeing within a couple of months that it hasn't improved their financial situation because their debt is even worse, their expenses have increased, and they've just adapted to the new income. So because they haven't addressed the cause, they've only addressed the symptoms. The analogy I use there is if you stayed in a cabin in the woods and you had to go to the river and go and find or carry water from the river to your cabin every morning, but your bucket that you're using to get the water is full of holes, what are you going to do? Are you going to start running faster back and forth to get the water to your cabin? Or are you going to sit down for a couple of minutes and first plug the holes in your bucket? Now again, logic says that you'll first plug the holes in your bucket, because why start running faster when half the water will run out in any case on the way back to your cabin? So that's what people do with their money. Instead of sitting down and first plugging the holes in their budget, because your budget is your bucket, first plugging the holes in your budget, they start running to get more revenue into their income or into their account. And that doesn't solve the cause of the problem. It only solves or looks at the symptoms. So you first have to look at the cause. But now that's what we do under financial intelligence, the risk management, and the savings level. From there, you now have to start increasing revenue, and to do that, you have to become an entrepreneur and create business assets. Now, what is a business asset? It's an asset that generates an income through leverage. A business asset is not where you work every hour of the day in that business. It's not a business where you do something, you get paid, and if you don't do anything, you don't get paid. It's something where you can teach others to do something. So those are business assets. Okay, so what kind of business assets are there? The first one is you can start a new venture. You can start something from scratch, which is either a product that you sell or it is a service that you can offer. You can go and invest in a franchise and build a business through there. You can get involved in some kind of a network marketing business. And there's numerous network marketing businesses out there in all different aspects of retail. You can do authorship. Now, authorship is where you write a book, you create a software program, you make music, anything like that you can do the work once, it can get sold or distributed, and you get paid on an ongoing basis for the work that you've done initially. You can also start with some consulting work on the side. You can go and you can consult in your field of expertise to businesses that might need your expertise. So those are all business assets that you can build. The next level is what we call capital assets. So what you want to do is you want to take those business assets, the profit that you make from those business assets, and you want to start parking it into building a capital asset. Now, there's different kinds of capital assets. The first is you can put it into unit trusts. So a unit trust is an investment that gives you access to the market, but it is flexible. It doesn't have a specific term. So you can put the money into a unit trust, and at any point you can access that money again, but it gives you access to the stock exchange or different sectors in the stock exchange. You can put your money, your profits from your business assets, into an index fund. The index fund is also called an exchange traded fund. It's similar to a unit trust, also flexible. You don't have a specific term, but it is a lower cost fund than a unit trust because it's not an actively managed fund. It's a passively managed fund. The third one is you can put money into retirement annuities. Now, that is a product that is specifically built for retirement savings. Because of that, you have some tax benefits and you have some credit protection in your retirement annuity. So it's important to have something like that as well to make provision for worst case scenario on retirement, but that's also building a capital asset. And then the last one is you can have endowments. Endowment is also a structured product, typically a minimum of 5 years before you can access your funds, but it's a structured product that also gives you access to the market. All of these are what we call capital assets. Now, how we use capital assets is only a stepping stone to the next level that we want to get to, and that is the tip of your pyramid, the highest level. Now, if we look at business assets and capital assets, those are the growth phase or the gain phase of your building your pyramid. So that's where you build an asset so that that asset can start working for you instead of you working for it. So once we've done your capital assets, that capital asset that you've built up is then moved into an income generating asset. That is the tip of the iceberg. That is also the abundance level, because once you start investing in income generating assets, you start building financial abundance. So what we want to do here, let's first talk about what is an income generating asset. An income generating asset is an asset that generates an income as a result of the asset, not what you do in the asset. Okay, so for example, if you own a flat and you rent out that flat, the rent gets paid because of the flat, not what you do in the flat. You don't have to go and work there from 8 o'clock in the morning till 5 in the afternoon to get that income. You own the flat, therefore you are paid the rent. That is an income generating asset, but there's lots of different ways. So let's look at a few. The first one is bonds. You can invest in bonds that pay you an income. Now, bonds, you have government bonds, you have corporate bonds that you can invest in. It's basically you lending money to a government or you lending money to a big corporation like Telkom and Eskom, Sasol, all of these kind of guys. And they pay you a fixed interest because of the money you've lent them. You can get income generating assets by collecting rent, by renting out some kind of a fixed property or some kind of a movable property. You could rent out trailers, get income from there. You can rent out commercial property, individual property. You can do Airbnb, which gives you rent on a daily basis. So there's a lot of different ways to create rent. You could earn royalties, and this is usually an extension of the authorship, where you create a book, you create some kind of an asset that generates royalties. You make music like Kelsey just did, and she will receive royalties from that song. She doesn't have to go record that song every month to get paid. That work has been done. Now forever, anytime that song gets played, anytime they download it, she receives royalties forever. That is a business asset or an income generating asset. And then lastly, you can get dividends. So if you invest in your own shares in companies, whether it is a public company or a private company, by being a shareholder in that company, if that company has profit for the year, that profit can be declared as dividends, and those dividends are then paid out to the investors or the shareholders per share that they own. You don't have to go and work in that company to earn those dividends. You are only a shareholder in that company, and that is a way that you create income generating assets. Now, once you get to the tip of that iceberg and the tip of the pyramid, you start building abundance. You want to create what we call a generational wealth spiral. So the income generating assets, the income that you get from those assets, have to be reinvested into capital assets, so that those capital assets can grow and then be reinvested back into income generating assets. And then you create a momentum, a spiral momentum of asset creating income, creating asset, creating income. And we call that compound income. Now, I know all of you, most of you have heard about compound interest before. Compound interest is earning interest on interest on interest on interest, and it's been called the eighth wonder of the world. But I believe that compound income is more valuable or more powerful even than compound interest. What is compound income? It's where you use a freedom income from an asset or income from a business, and you create a capital asset. Then that capital asset gets put into another asset that creates more income. So you use income to create more income and create more income. And that is like multiplication, where compound interest is like adding. If you want to count to 100 in twos, and you start adding those two, so 2 plus 2 is 4, plus 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8, plus 2 is 10, it's going to take you much longer to get to 100 than multiplying 2. So 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. And compound income is like multiplication, where compound interest is like adding. So you want to get to compounding income, and you do that by start building income generating assets. And once the income from your income generating assets are equal or more than your expenses that you have, you are free. Because now you can choose what you want to do with your life, because your lifestyle is secured through your assets. And that is where true freedom lies. And the amazing thing is, once you get to a point where you can work because you want to work, not because you need to pay the bills, you become way more successful, because you're now doing what you are passionate about, and you're doing it for the right reasons. Hi guys, Lawrence here. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you found it informative and you got some benefit out of it. Please add in the comments any questions you might have, or any other topics that you would like me to talk about. Please subscribe to our channel, hit the bell button so that you can get notified of any new videos that we post, so you don't miss anything. Thanks guys, see you around.